A couple things up front, some admin stuff. The Zoom's going to be recorded. That way we can share it to other people that aren't able to make it tonight. We've opened up a question and answer box here, so you don't have to put those in the chat. So if you do have a question on anything the presenters are saying, just put it up in there, and the subject matter experts will answer it there. For wings credit, again, with the amount of folks, it's going to take me a minute to do that, but I'll start as soon as I get the paperwork in the morning. Order of the agenda for this evening's going to be Perry Benshoof from the FSDO, followed by Rich Allabaugh, the airport manager. He's going to talk about some of the initiatives at Manassas Airport. AJ Sawaqdeh, he's a air traffic control specialist from Potomac TRACON. We have a special guest tonight, Sergeant Marcus Beacham from the United States Marine Corps. He's going to be presenting on air traffic control in vicinity of the Quantico class Delta. And then we'll finish up with our special guests, the Manassas air traffic control tower folks. With that, I'll turn it over to Perry just for any opening remarks.
Thank you, Gordon. I appreciate it. First of all, I'd like to say a special thank you to Gordon. He's one of our more active FAAST team safety representatives in our area. I am the FAAST team safety program manager for the Washington FSDO. And with my job is I have a group of volunteers such as Gordon that volunteer as safety representatives. And again, Gordon's one of our more active ones, and it's truly appreciated. I'd also like to say a big thank you to the panelists tonight. Without the panelists, we could not put these informational briefings and webinars and seminars together. So thanks to all of you for agreeing to participate. It makes our job a lot easier in the FSDO and from the FAAST team's perspective. So again, my name is Perry Benshoof. You see my name up there on the screen. If you ever have any questions specific to the FSDO, if there's anything that we can do at the FSDO level, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. And this is what we do. We do the safety and education outreach in the FAAST team. And it's nights like tonight that help us get that education message out to everybody. So again, a big thank you. And especially a thank you to the folks that are joining us tonight. It's what it's all about. So thanks for taking the time out and joining. Hopefully you get something out of it. Thanks, Gordon.
Thanks, Perry. Turn it over to Rich Allabaugh from Manassas Airport Operations.
Thank you, Gordon. Thank you, Perry, and panelists for joining tonight. Just wanted to go through a little bit. I'm Richard Outbound with Airport Operations at the Manassas Airport. Jolene Berry is also on as a panelist as well. That she works in Airport Operations with us. I just want to go through real quick. Want to defer most of my time for the rest of the panelists to talk about their stuff, but just wanted to talk a little bit about what's going on at the Manassas Airport and what to look out for in the next year or so. So Gordon, can you move the next slide, please? Thank you. So runway 16 right, 34 left, the rehab's done. Last week we had the final as-built survey that was done too as well. So you got yourself a 75-foot wide runway, LED lights, new signage, new markings as well. So that worked out pretty well. Appreciate everybody's patience as we went through that process, and many thanks to the tower for working with those construction crews on that. So next slide. So taxiway Alpha, we finished design on this project. So taxiway Alpha is obviously the supporting taxiway for runway 16 right, 34 left. We finished that up. There's not going to be a whole lot of changes as you see on the graphic there is from our design or design documents. So what we're doing there is adding some additional, replacing the lighting. So we're going to go switch over to LED lighting, depending on what the bids come in at. We're going to potentially put signage on the west ramp. So you'll have entrances into the west ramp that will be labeled similar to what we have on the east side. Can't remember exactly what those numbers or letters will be. So just be aware of that as we move forward with that. We'll do some additional phasing. So we'll continue to make sure that the access to the west side is open during the different phases of the project. No other geometry is expected to be changed as far as that goes. So it's just a rehab of the existing pavement. So that should be in the spring and summer of next year. Next question, next one. So taxiway Bravo rehab. This week we've been having the survey crews out there. They're going to start also as well as next week, in which we will rehab taxiway Bravo. That's in 2023 is the potential. We're starting design now, but 2023 is when we're expected to do construction. So we're looking at widening taxiway Bravo from 40 feet to 50 feet, fill in some of those fillet areas that you see in red, and look at possible lighting upgrades, signage, things like that. And then that area that's kind of highlighted in blue over there, we're going to add some additional pavement to the east side to allow transitions for, to move in front of that hangar for larger Group 2 aircraft to transition down the east ramp. Other items that we have is the master plan. So that kicked off last week. As far as we met with our engineers, RSH, who will be conducting the master plan process. So it's an 18 to 24 month process. Look out for notices, public involvement opportunities. This is the opportunity for everybody that either has a vested interest in Manassas, or you fly in and out, or for whatever reason, we value your input on how our airport's going to grow over the next 20 years. So if you're able to attend any of those meetings or provide comment when the comment period comes through, please, do that, because, we wouldn't be the airport that we are without our users. So take a look at that as we do that part of that project. Next slide. A couple other things that we worked on that you should be aware of. We partnered with the flight schools, the Air Traffic Control Tower, as well as our local charter companies to kind of figure out some special taxi instructions that we have at the airport. They're not in the AFD. We kind of just do it as a local procedure. The tower's done a great job of being able to manipulate that as far as getting you in and out. But the purpose of these instructions, you'll find them on our website, and the next slide will show that where that's at. But basically, to highlight is that we're trying to help the flow around the airport. So the main thing, there's the right up there that's on the left-hand side of the screen. But the big takeaway is that when you're taxiing in and out of the east and west ramp, which Gordon, if you go to the next slide too as well, the biggest thing is don't block the intersections. So as you're receiving your clearance, coming out of the ramp and stuff, and you're getting ready to taxi, try not to block those intersections, so that way traffic can go in and out as that goes around, and that'll just help the overall flow. And again, this is it's not something published as far as in the AFD or a chart supplement. This is something locally that we've developed that just review it and take a look. If you have any questions, you can either reach out to the tower or the airport, and we'll be happy to provide clarification on how that works. So if you show the next slide, this is where you can find it. So if you go under flyhef.com, under pilot information, you'll find that link for the special taxi instructions. It's a PDF that you can view. And that should help you out as far as being able to look at that. So next slide, is there another one? Oh, so that's pretty much it. Like I said, I wanted to not take a whole lot of time because I know the tower and we got a lot of panelists here to fill you in on their information. But one more plug is that we're kicking off a Toys for Tots campaign. We just received the boxes today. So if you're interested in participating in something like that, those boxes will be in the terminal building where you can drop them off, and there may be some swag that goes along with that. So any questions for airport operations or even airport maintenance, their number and information is there on the screen. Email, phone number, come by our office. It's on the second floor of the terminal building. We'd be happy to talk with you and answer your questions. So that's all I have. Gordon, are you muted?
Thank you, Richard. As I said at the beginning, there's the question and answer block up at the top. So if you have anything to put in there specific to any of the presenters, just put it in there instead of the chat room, and we'll get to it as we can. With that, again, thanks, Richard. We'll pass it over to AJ Sawaqdeh over in Potomac TRACON.
Hello, everybody. Like Gordon said, my name's AJ Sawaqdeh. I'm an air traffic control specialist at Potomac TRACON. I also work for the support staff, specifically with airspace and procedures for Potomac TRACON. Some of my background, I did work at Manassas Tower as a controller as well for 3 years before that. And I have my multi-engine commercial rating in about 300 hours in the cockpit. So I have some of your view from that seat. So we try to think about that as we make procedures and rules and all that. And if you want, we'll go ahead and get started there, Gordon, if you want to go to the next slide. So one of the, when we did this FAAST meeting the first time around, one of the first things that we wanted to say as approach controllers was talking about requesting flight following. Understanding that you don't know the other side, when the beacon code gets dropped off and we say squawk VFR, frequency change approved, and then you ask for flight following at that point, we've already dumped all the information out. So it's best to request the flight following on initial contact with Potomac approach, not with Manassas Tower, not on the ground there. Just when you first talk to Potomac approach, this is November 234 coming off Manassas. Okay, we see you. And then that's when you would say, can we have flight following? And we can start working on that flight following request right at that point. So that was just something we wanted to give all pilots to let them know this is what Potomac TRACON, the best way for work. We can make it work on the other end. You're just helping us reduce the workload. It would be the same thing as Potomac approach asking you to do a turn late on final in the middle of a checklist. We not the best. You can make it work, but it helps everybody else if we can do that a little bit better. Next slide, please. This graphic shows the typical IFR corridors going into Manassas Airport. And these are for visual approaches that we set up, because obviously when we do the instrument approaches, they're going to be established on the final approach course far away from the airport. So these are setting up for the visual approaches, and they are dictated by other flows into Dulles and special use airspace off to the south there. So this was just something that we want to show. This is where you can expect IFR arrivals to come in for visual approaches. And this would be something that for VFR pilots, if you can try to stay away from these areas when possible. An example would be if you're coming out of Manassas and we're in a south flow and you want to go north to Leesburg, taking a tight right turn right back into the face of the traffic at the same altitude as what possible IFRs are going to be, not the best idea. So we want to stay away from that corridor, take your turn a little further out to the west, and then start out, maybe when you get to Casanova, stay outside the Bravo there as you're going up to the northwest. That was just something that we wanted to show pilots, this is our typical IFR arrival for Manassas. Next slide, please there, Gordon. And the IFR departure corridors are pretty much the same, just coming out. These are specifically the standard instrument departure procedures for Manassas Airport. And there's 3 of them there: Arsenal, Gabby, Hitch. Everybody knows that. Just wanted everybody to know when you're making your turns as a VFR departure, be aware what the IFR departure behind you is going to do. You have a pretty good idea if they're going to be going north or south, so you can dictate it from there. And that's one way you can kind of change your flight track to be a little bit away from the IFR departure corridor. Next slide there, please, Gordon. And one more thing to think about as you're going in and out of the Manassas Airport VFR there is Class B avoidance. And we really have good pilots in this area that do a really good job of staying outside the Bravo. This was just wanting to, again, one more time of showing when Dulles is north and Manassas is north at the same time, we got to make sure to stay outside of the Bravo. And one best practice that we have is you don't want to go too far east of the extended center lines of Dulles when we're north, because those airplanes are big, they're very large, and they're descending down into the airport. So you can kind of see what we see as controllers. And, as the airplanes are descending down into Dulles, you shouldn't be too high up there near the Bravo when you're going into land for Manassas Airport. And I know you're talking to the tower at that point, but that is one point that we're watching and we're seeing, is this aircraft going to come out of 2400? They've hung their base up pretty high right here. We got to make sure, because if you don't and you wait too long, you could impact an IFR arrival and they'll have to level off and potentially have a go around. Next slide, please there, Gordon. This slide's about frequency changes, and this is kind of a teamwork issue, or a teamwork that we can have together to get to a better product in the end. If you haven't been told that you're outside the SFR and you're mile 2 out, it is perfectly fine to give the approach controller a reminder. Hey, I'm 2 miles away from the boundary. Did you want me to switch over to the practice area frequency, or, you know, on my own frequency and squawk? We appreciate the reminders. You know, don't think that we're bugging you, that you're bugging us at all. You know, give us the reminder, and it works both ways. If you are getting close to Manassas airspace, Manassas Tower airspace, and you feel like you should be on with the tower, give us another reminder right there, and we will not balk. We will help you out. We'll switch you back over right when you will, and it works. It, you know, works both ways. And so that was just one more thing we wanted to add as part of the teamwork there. Next slide, please. One more note that we wanted to say: if it's been a long time since you have worked on the SFRA course, it's really good to go back in there and take a refresher. There is a large amount of NOTAMs that these SFRA procedures are dictated. So going back and going through the course and looking at all of those, it's really good for pilots to go back through it. Those NOTAMs are, you know, changing too. You know, it's minor over the last couple of years of what has changed, but they do. There are certain little details that will change. So retaking the course and taking a look at the NOTAMs will help everybody else have good situational awareness for the SFRA. And then I think one more slide, or is that it there, Gordon? Nope, that's it for me. And real quick, if you have any questions, you can throw it in the Q&A part, and Gordon can forward in any to me that are not able to be answered by Manassas Tower or Gordon, and I can send back an answer via email. And I'll try to stay on for the next 10 to 15 minutes, because that's about how much more time I have, and I'll try to answer anything into the chat. I just wanted to give Gordon a heads up there.
Hey, thanks again, AJ, and I appreciate it. And I know you got to run, so I appreciate you sticking around a few extra minutes to answer those questions, and we'll get them to you after this. And you know, if you do have a question that's not answered tonight, you can push it out to me, and I'll push it to the appropriate party. So, moving with that, again, a special guest. We started this collaboration with them last spring when restricted area 6608 came up. So I reached out to, it was the first time I ever asked air traffic control for a phone number. I was flying over Quantico, and I was like, hey, can I get your phone number to call you when I'm on the ground? And I started talking with that team over there and started inviting them into there. So again, welcome to Sergeant Marcus Beacham from a Marine Corps Air Facility, Quantico.
Thanks again for having me, Gordon, and good evening, everyone. Like I said, my name is Sergeant Beacham. I'm the radar chief at MCAF Quantico. In addition, I'm also a TERP specialist and well as the training chief over at MCAF Quantico. I fulfill many billets, so I could pretty much answer any question of any operations that are being conducted at Quantico. So starting off with that, so our essential mission is to support HMX-1, which is obviously the presidential squadron, for the movement of the presidents, and we also support the Air Mobility Command reaches. So going on with that, so our facility is a training facility, as well as like I ensure like the instructors for the pilots with the students that we have. They're not as fluent as obviously certified controllers as certified pilots. So just kind of bear with us as well. And with AJ, like most of what he said with the flight following services, like, so once we drop that data, like we just, like once you request it again, it's kind of a, not really a workload, but depending on what other stuff that we have going on, we're essentially doing the same thing as Potomac as well with inputting your flight plans. So with the class Delta and R6608, just there's not much space to kind of transition through that airspace. However, the only issue that I've probably have taken note from from most of our floor controllers is that just ensure that we have established communication just prior. Because most of the time you won't get a transition with our tower. Surprisingly, most of the time our data is transferred via automation from Potomac to Quantico's radar, and most of the time, more often than not, the radar controllers will then get a verbal confirmation to transition to Delta, and then we'll approve it for the pilot. And more often than not, there's never any issue with going through the class Delta, just ensuring that we have that communication established well before. And I mean, from even personal experience, the tower, they have a display workstation, but they never even honestly look at that, to be honest. And obviously, as a radar controller, we observe everything, and obviously we're very familiar with how operations go around there. So more often than not, just to alleviate any potential conflicts, we'll go ahead and get a coordination prior if they're entering, regardless if we have whether if we have communications with the pilots or not. We'll just get one beforehand, just so we have towers approval to transition a guy through the Delta. Rarely, often than not, I mean, I don't know if AJ can attest to this, but more than likely they switch the pilots to Quantico radar. And and Quantico's tower has no issues with you guys transitioning through the airspace, because often than not, the only use of that area to the west side of Quantico's airport is essentially for the pilots, the helicopters transitioning in and out from the ranges. And I mean, other than that, either Potomac or the radar, Quantico radar will provide traffic advisories or any other types of restrictions. And I know, Mr. Gordon, you had a couple questions I had pulled up on my email from earlier.
Yeah. Just, I was curious why your Quantico arrival, and is there a distinction between an approach and arrival?
Yes. So back in 2004, so our manuals are we followed the nav air. So we were classified as approach control facility back in 2004. However, they made some adjustments to, I guess, with the levels of classifications with the amount of traffic and the amount of airspace. Essentially, we still provide all the same services as an approach control facility, but just due to, I guess, our traffic load and the area that we own whenever we are open, we have to be classified as an arrival control per our NATOPS or NAVAIR manual.
So that's military specific, or would I see a civilian arrival anywhere?
Yeah, that's military specific for us.
Cool. Interesting. Yeah, and the other one was, are your METARs and staff TAFs published at the same frequency as civilians?
So yeah, if we do have published, so we have a couple of them. So our ATIS, which broadcasts our weather sequence as well. That frequency is 263.15. And that broadcasts weather. However, Quantico is always falling apart. Something's going wrong. So our ATIS actually just went down yesterday. But we also do have a Metro on 355.3 that also we're able to supply the weather as well. But yeah, we do have that published on, let's see. But yes, we actually, I think it's AirNav, we do actually have all those frequency published if they wanted to check the weather. And more often than not, when you check in with either the tower or arrival, we'll more than likely always provide you a weather sequence, especially now with our ATIS, or the ATIS being down.
Gotcha. No, cool. Welcome again, Sergeant Beacham, and I appreciate you and your team for participating in this.
Oh, of course. And so also another thing, Quantico is very special with how we operate. So our operating hours is on via NOTAM as well. So we're open from Monday through Thursday from 0800 to 2100. Since we're a military facility and we based everything off of, how the military works, like holidays and stuff, they'll typically NOTAM close the field and we won't have any operations. And on Fridays, the facility is open at 08 to 1700 local. So, and the tower essentially is only open whenever they're supporting HMX1. So when I was at work earlier, they closed around 1500 because HMX1 was flight operations complete, and they closed tower. And so essentially radar is the only one that's open. So they'll just approve transitions in and out of the Delta without any coordination or any problems at all.
Does your airspace change when the tower closes?
No, our airspace stays the same because we'll coordinate with Potomac, and especially the Potomac controllers know when we're open because we get the airspace from them. But our airspace stays the same.
Got it. Cool, thank you. Again, same thing. If you got any questions for the Marines, put it up in the Q&A block. And moving over now to Tim Harman and his team at the Manassas Tower.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us. And Gordon and Perry, thank you very much for the invite. I think when we all met in the spring, I think that paid huge dividends. That's when our 6068 was really starting to kick in and changes were made. So I'll say what I said back then. I think communication among the users and the tower, along with Potomac supporting us also, it pays huge dividends, and in the long run, it's beneficial for all of us. So thanks for joining. I have quite a few subject matter experts with me today on the panel, and they're going to go over some questions that we had, and then of course we'll stick around for questions afterward. But I have controllers Jackson Berezo, Natelie, Chappell, Mike Hetland, and Johnny Misner, and supervisors Jason Johnson and Shalana Smalls. So we have a lot of experts here to answer some questions. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Jackson, and we can go to the next slide. Gordon, thanks.
How's it going, everybody? Jackson Berezo here. I'm the FAC rep at Manassas. It's just me, Natelie, Chappell, and Mike Hetland on the video. We've got the other controllers are just working on some questions in the Q&A, so you can just put that in there if you have any questions on the side. So we'll go to a few of the big questions we get, some of the most important things and issues that we see regularly. So it would be read back hold instructions, read back hold short instructions. It's a requirement for us to have a proper read back whenever we issue it. So if you're holding short of the runway, and if we say hold short and we get a copy or a Roger or anything or a Wilco, that's not good enough for us. We need a specific hold short runway 34 right. It may sound long-winded or unnecessary, but it's just part of our rules and regulations that we're required to have the exact phraseology. And just to keep it easy, just try to make it a habit of just reading that back every time. It makes it easier for us and makes everything go much smoother. If we want to go to the next slide, Gordon, please. Thank you. And we'll do runway assignments here. It's similar to the hold short instructions. It's just a read back the runway. Whenever we give you a taxi instruction or a landing clearance, departure clearance, anything like that, runway assignment is required. And if we don't get it, we're going to have to say again or repeat the entire instruction until we get those specific runway 34 right, clear to land. Again, no Rogers or Wilcos copies, none of that works for us. Keep it easy for us and all you guys, and quick, just read back the runway, please. So I'll let Natelie, Chappell take the next couple questions.
Hi everyone, I'm Natelie. I'm the vice rep at Manassas, and we get a lot of variety of different people asking for takeoff clearances. Sometimes we hear ready to go, holding short runway 34 right, ready for departure, number 4 or 5 in line, ready for departure. So to keep it easy for that as well, just the prescribed phraseology. What we have in our 711065 is runway 34 right, 34 left, whatever runway, clear, holding short, runway 34 right. Yeah, so just holding short of the runway when you're number 1, use the prescribed phraseology, runway at, or if you're at a intersection, runway 34 right at Bravo 4, number 1, ready for takeoff. And you can go to the next slide, Gordon. VFR departures, fluky as an example, when can I turn on course? Legally, if we don't tell you something like fly runway heading or we'll call your turn, you can proceed on course. But for safety reasons, it's always good as a pilot to ask if you can proceed on course. So that's never a bad idea. But if we don't tell you an alternate instruction, you can proceed on course. And we're going to go to Mike now.
right, how's everybody doing? Mike Hetland, controller at Manassas. This slide is quite easy. The inbounds and outbounds, there's a lot of questions about the north or south of the tracks. Generally speaking, I would say just common sense, just if you're departing 3-4 right and you're headed out to the west, departing 3-4 right, so you're launching to the north. So on the outbound, you'll be north of the tracks. On the return, you'll be south of the tracks. It'll be opposite from 16 left, 16 right. So 16 left, 16 right will be south of the bends departing and north of the bends returning. There's a lot of confusion there. There is quite a few aircraft inbound and outbound simultaneously. And I know we call traffic to the maximum extent possible, but if there is some kind of orderly flow that the pilots can get on the same page with, it will help everybody out, keep everybody safe. I think that's pretty much all we've got on the bends there. And the tracks are about the bend in the train tracks. We looked it up. It's off the 252 radial, 6 miles southwest of Manassas. So it is a good part. It's prior to entering the Class Delta airspace. So it is a good general area. And I guess it's a good visual reporting point for the pilots, easy to see. And I guess, Gordon, the next slide, please. All right. So the difference between the SFRA frequency 2852 and 127.32, the 128.52 will be used for IFR departures to Potomac. 127.32 will be the VFR departures when the positions are decombined at Potomac. Traffic, if there's not a overload or increased traffic workload for Potomac, they will have 2732 tied in, combined up with 128.52. So you'll be talking to the same controller, whether you're IFR or VFR. When there is an increased traffic load, the IFRs will be on 128.52. and the VFRs will be on 127.32. So as long as both those frequencies are working, that's how that should normally work. And I believe that is it for my part.
Thanks, Mike. On those towers, is it just on those frequencies, is it just workload dependent, or I notice it generally happens about 9 o'clock in the morning? Is that just because of the amount of traffic that starts picking up out of Manassas?
I believe so, Gordon, and the staffing that they have there as well. So if they have an ample amount of staffing, they'd probably separate it sooner rather than later. But I would say under normal circumstances, about 8:30, 9 o'clock is when we get the call, and then in the evening they will call us and then combine it back up. Now it's set sunsets, I believe 4:55, so probably about 5 or 6 o'clock. They may combine it back up, but that's the confusion there. So if you're a VFR, I mean, ultimately, and it's the middle of the day, you can expect 2732. IFR always 128.52 unless there's a problem with the frequency there. So.
And that's good. The reason I asked you guys to talk about that is, oftentimes we'll get an early flight with a student, we'll be on 2852, then trying to come back in. Now it's 10 o'clock in the morning and, we get, hey, contact us on 2732. I try to explain why that is, but I figured it'd be better coming from you all.
Understood.
And Gordon, I can add, Mike hit the nail on the head. I was at Potomac for a few years, and I think AJ jumped off and he could do that also, or explain it also. But when we worked over there, almost every day that was VFR, good VFR weather, 8:30, 9 o'clock is when it was open, and they would set it for sunset. If there were things going on in the area, they would maybe run it a little longer past sunset. But of course, if it was IFR low ceilings, a lot of times in the wintertime when the weather wasn't good, they would not open the suffer. And it is staffing dependent, but the goal was to have it open as much as possible because it was there for a reason. So
sure, no, good info. I'm hesitant to bring up R6608, but have you had any? I think when we talked in the spring, you said there was one delay because it was active at the time. Have you had any hindrances on that?
I'll let any of the controllers answer that, then I'll add my 2 cents afterwards. Any delays? Anyone?
Tim, not to my knowledge, no, I don't believe, not since I've been on position, no, nor have I heard of any delays other than possibly that one occurrence. But I don't believe it's been much of an issue since this came up.
Sure.
And we were preparing it to be active more. I know it's, you know, whenever they need it or whenever it's scheduled, and they give us plenty of notice. Usually the schedule will come out 2 weeks in advance that we'll get it from Quantico. And we thought when the LOA went into effect, the new LOA last almost a year ago, it was the anticipation that it would be open more than what it is, not to say that it won't in the future. And whenever we would get notice, we would try to let airport ops know about it, just so they could send something out, and they were really good about sending something out on that. But it hasn't been active for, I'd say at least 6 to 8 weeks for the demo area. So, but when it does, we'll try to get that notification out to the airports. So they can send it to all the users.
No, and I only bring that up, and like I said, I was hesitant because it riled up some folks when it first came up last year. But I just wanted to put it in perspective because I've been talking with you and I haven't heard of any instances of delays, and I just wanted to reinforce that even though there are some changes with the LOA, it hasn't really affected our operations. So like I said, didn't want to open Pandora's box, but just also wanted to talk about it again. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and we can open it up. That's the end of the presentation, folks. I see folks have been answering in the Q&A section as we've been going along. If you have anything else, there's one more down here that just popped up. Yes, it is being recorded, and we'll send out the link afterwards so everybody can watch that to folks that aren't here. If you're interested in the slides, I can also forward those to you as well. And I'm just going to check the chat room as well. Someone's asking, can you explain the EDCT procedure? I don't know what the EDCT procedure is. Anybody?
Go ahead. So it's an edict, estimated departure clearance time, expected departure clearance time. Usually goes on when there's a lot of weather in the area or something, and either the airport or the fix that you're expected to go over or go to is just seeing a crazy amount of traffic or congestion. So what they'll do is they'll put these times on specific flight plans in order to maintain a flow. So you don't have, you know, for instance, 20 aircraft departing from any airport in the United States to hit that point at the same time. So it's just metering, just to keep flow going smoothly rather than just a big congestion at once.
All right, anything else out there? Another one popped up in the Q&A.
If we also want to read the question, if we're faster than typing, then we can do that and
Sure.
answer that live if you want.
If HEF tower is a VF tower with limited display, deep bright display, how can the tower provide separation from the demo MOA? I don't know what a deep bright display is.
Anybody from the tower want to answer that?
Yeah, I mean, we don't really provide separation. It's just the VFRs inbound that we talk to. It's up to Potomac to, whenever it's expanded or bring it in, it's up to them to keep them clear of the restricted area.
All right. Something for you, Sergeant Beacham, about practice approaches at Quantico.
Oh, yes, absolutely. So we're more than willing, both radar and tower are willing to accommodate any practice approaches, whether if it's a PAR, ASR, or even if you wanted to do some tower pattern work, the controllers there are more than willing to work you guys in with the other traffic that we have. The only stipulation is that if they want to full stop, then they must have a PPR prior to wanting to full stop, unless obviously if there's an emergency that exists.
Good. And then another one with traffic saturation projected for next Tuesday, Wednesday for the holiday. for IFR departures filed out of Manassas? Will it be easier to request VFR and have ATCT rely on Potomac TRACON, provide the IFR clearance on Arsenal 5? As you all understand, burning fuel 10 to 20 minutes awaiting IFR clearance is really an inconvenience.
I can't speak to Potomac on that, but it's definitely faster to file VFR and get out of Manassas than to wait for an IFR departure, especially if there's multiple IFR departures waiting to go.
There was a comment in the chat box that said, what is the bends?
I'm sorry, Richard, you said, what is the bends?
Yeah, what are the bends?
Yeah, that was the comment. Yep.
Okay, I haven't been up in the area yet, and I've got one of the pilots around here is going to take me out on one of my off days coming up, which I'm looking forward to. It'll help me get a perspective. But the bends from what we see on our map here is to the southwest, off the 252 radial off of Manassas, 6 miles. It's a bend. If you're going northeast to southwest, it'll be a hook into tracks, and the tracks continue to the southwest. I guess it's just a good visual reporting point for pilots. The question that we were discussing on that slide was an organized way to flow the outbound and inbound arrival and departures headed VFR to the southwest. And the bends was just a good point to stay below or south of or north of. And oftentimes we will recommend you stay north of the bends for multiple VFR inbounds. Safety is our #1 concern here. So if we can kind of tell you to stay above a visual reporting point that we kind of, we know exactly where it is, and hopefully you guys can see it, it just helps us do a better job to keep everybody safe and the flow in and out just more efficient.
Yeah, it's pretty distinguishable. It's where I think it's Highway 29, and the tracks run parallel for a while, and then at some point the road hooks off of the tracks and comes back to it. So it's pretty distinguishable.
Gordon, if I
It's
pull up a sectional, would that be helpful?
If you got one.
Gordon, just to clarify, that's actually Route 28 that goes down
20.
through there. The parallels of the railroad tracks.
Can you move your cursor down, Richard? Yeah, and then follow 20. You said 28, Harry?
Yeah,
No,
Route
go-
28.
Closer
28
to
goes. Yep.
And it's right there, right, Jackson? A little bit to the right.
Sorry, I was answering a question. Could you say that again?
Yeah, I'm having a hard time seeing it. I'm on my phone here, but it's off the 252 radial, so southwest at exactly 6 miles. So if you can see the Class Delta airspace, let's see.
So I think it's right there where the Fluky Gate is. See that little bend in the
Yeah.
track right there?
Yeah, it's right under the K for Fluky. It's where the bend is.
Yeah, you see where the road and the track separate right there. That answer the question? Where was everybody good? Got another one on from Tom Kelly and the IFR departures. You guys see that, Tim?
Or is it, Gordon?
It's in the Q&A. I'll read it. In order to benefit IFR departures and avoid collision risks, is there a recommended altitude for VFR trainers so we don't get in their way, cause delays? My flight school flies 23 outbound and 2,000 coming in.
So we get questions like this a lot. and hopefully we can record this answer and and maybe disseminate it. So the issue we have here in our airspace is all of our departures go one way. All of our arrivals come inbound from the exact same way. Departures are climbing to 2000 and they're going to Casanova. If you're coming inbound from Casanova at 2000, you can see the issue there. Generally Casanova, obviously we got the hitch and other stuff, but under 2000 would be great. 2300 would be great, but just know that your descent is going to be delayed due to that IFR going outbound at 2000. But 23 would be okay. I'd rather it be under 2000 because generally our IFRs are climbing quicker than the Cessna or the Archer that's coming out. And also another point to that is we get a lot of questions on the, we had a couple today of the delays for departures and then IFRs cutting in front of everybody. It goes back to, I think everybody's going the same way. If I depart a Cessna going 120 knots, then that citation or that Jenna is going to have to wait 5-10 minutes before he can go out to Casanova because we've got a Cessna right there at 1800. It just makes logical sense and it's expeditious to, even if you've been waiting for 5-10 minutes, to send that Jenna or that citation out first, because then we can have 5 Cessnas go back to back to back rather than just one Cessna waiting 10 minutes, then a citation, and then the Cessnas. So I hope that answers most of the questions that I've been typing out here.
It does. There's a bigger picture than just our airplane. I try to impart that on my students. We can't see everything that the radar controllers can see.
Yeah,
and it's happening for a reason. And if it doesn't make sense, speak up and ask. But it's generally because of, as you just described it, there's something coming in or coming out that's bigger or faster than us.
Yeah, and I know that your students are paying money and stuff, and it sucks that people get delayed. Another thing I can suggest is like keep an eye out, listen to the frequencies. If you hear a bunch of clearances going out, and you want to taxi out with all those clearances, just know that you're probably going to be delayed because you're not the top priority when we have IFRs trying to go out. And stagger those lesson times. You know, don't everybody have your lesson at 9 a.m. Have some at 9:15, 9:30, and it'll make for a smoother traffic that day. And rather than we get these big pushes at 9 a.m. and then everybody back inbound at 10 a.m.
Good info. See if any.
There's one that said, why is there such a long delay with holding short to depart IFR waiting for Potomac to provide a clearance? Oh, holding short to depart IFR waiting for Potomac to issue a clearance.
I think we just answered that. Like that, there's what's going on in the Manassas airspace. They're coordinating with the release from Potomac. Potomac's looking at the bigger picture from them. When can they accept that? And definitely speak up, Tim and team. But it's all synchronized. And so if there's a delay for us, it's probably because there's a delay somewhere else down the road.
Gordon, that was perfect there. Potomac's got so much going on, and we're just a small little portion of their equation. So they want to get you out and going as quickly as possible. If they can give us the release and they think they can do it so they can control you safely, they absolutely will. And we don't want to keep 1, 2, 3 aircraft holding short of the runway. If we can get you out of here, we want to get you out of here. But it just depends on the traffic load and the safety that Potomac has at that current time.
Another one, not necessarily related to Manassas, but it is an SFRA question, and AJ is gone. Trouble is getting back out, especially the Baltimore number. I've had it be busy for an hour, another SFRA deaths. Say they can't get a squawk for Baltimore sector to get me out. Any other way to get a squawk without a phone number, I guess? Did I get that? Timothy Nathan is asked the question. Did I get that right, Tim?
I can unmute you, Tim, if you need to provide further clarification.
If I got it right, if he's trying to call a phone number to get a squawk, if at a non-towered or if the tower is closed.
Yeah, that was the question. Was just trying to get me back out of the SFRA with Potomac.
I'm not, so at the times I've done that, Tim, out of Manassas, I call the phone number out of the chart supplement for Potomac. Every once in a while, it's rang a few times, but somebody eventually picks it up there. But I didn't realize they're actually controllers, like they have a phone next to their radio, I guess. So you can hear them talking. So they're not answering, it might be busy. I'm sure you've already done that, look in the chart supplement. Hit me up on email or something after this. I can send it to you and we'll try to work something out to compare both numbers with the what's in the chart supplement.
Okay.
And in the time it took me to say that, we got 3 more questions. Guess I have the impression that the SFRA shuffle frequency is less busy than PCT West, so I'm more likely to get out of half when I pull up to the runway threshold than waiting for PCT West controllers to have a break and work to release a plane from GEF or F. Chris, I'm going to butcher your last name. Wizarek.
You want me to unmute him?
Yeah, if you could, it might be better than me trying to decipher the question.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, I guess the question was in the sense that, the CIFR shuffle frequency basically is just dedicated to VFR traffic on the west side of Dulles, practically. And so, Potomac West is dealing all the traffic, primarily, arrivals into Dulles and departures out of Dulles. And it's busy and controllers are handling that, whereas the CIFR shuffle folks are basically just handling pistons. And I've, been waiting at that threshold at Manassas on several occasions for a clearance, and then VFRs are able to get out. And I had that impression that Potomac West is just busy with other stuff to handle releases from Manassas. Is that a true impression? Not a true impression? I don't know.
Search a further question in there is.
In other words, is Potomac West too busy in compare, or is the CIFR frequency, folks, is what 127.32, right? Most of the time.
Correct.
It seems like it's not nearly as busy as Potomac West, and so there's more human resource out there to take care of CIFR VFR flight plans than there is for an IFR flight plan out of Manassas. You need frequency congestion and the whole rigmarole of releasing an aircraft for an IFR flight departure.
I would say both frequencies and both SEFRA and the Barron frequency get really busy. It just depends on there's more rules for IFR departures, and we can launch as many VFR departures and not give them a heads up, but we can't really do that with IFR departures, and they need specific spacing and time requirements going into different airports. So it just depends on the day.
Yeah, I guess the thought here is if it's a severe clear day and I'm departing IFR, but if I have the option of departing VFR, it sounds like it's better to depart VFR and then pick up an IFR flight plan to, I don't know, Charlottesville or Lynchburg or Roanoke, wherever you're going, because simply by virtue of frequency congestion, Potomac, the CIFR shuffle frequency is going to be more available, and there's less sequencing requirements and separation requirements.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely more expeditious.
But definitely don't rely on that. If you need the IFR clearance, like based on Potomac workload, it's not guaranteed. Obviously, you know that, and I wouldn't count on it on any given day, especially if you're not wanting to file an IFR because of congestion. I wouldn't expect that you would get it in the air, because that's so much more work on the controller. If you pick up your clearance in the air, it's so much more work.
Well, the impression I had was I would actually file the flight plan from Fluky or Casanova or something like that. So the flight plan's on file. I would just have to pick up the clearance as opposed to actually filing the flight plan in the air.
Yeah, no, that means that the controller, generally whatever approach controller, has to read you the clearance rather than me sitting in the tower where my only job is clearances. His job is separating the 40, 50 planes he has in his airspace and then have to give you a clearance that you didn't get on the ground. It is just the way that it's looked at. It just increases the workload.
Got it.
And again, there's nothing against it, nothing wrong with it. I'm just saying that they do not have to approve it. So I wouldn't count on it every time. It is just going to depend on the workload.
I think that's it. That's the last one, and we're hitting 2000, which was the scheduled closing time. Again, thank you for all of the presenters. I'm always surprised when I come up with these crazy ideas to put one of these together, how willing everybody is. Well, I'm assuming your team's willing, Tim. I don't know if you just told them to be here, but always impressed with the enthusiasm I get from folks jumping on to support this. For the airport loaning us their Zoom account that allows us the ability to record these. We're catching more people with this. Again, I didn't care what they spoke about tonight. It was just like, hey, how do we make our local pilots safer and better, and how do we make controllers' jobs easier? And I think this is all part of that. So again, thank you from the bottom of my heart for everybody that presented, and for Perry. He's just been an awesome program manager for the FAAST team and super enthusiastic. I think Richard posted the Zoom link for this in the chat.
Yeah, yeah. So it's gonna be posted. I'll grab everybody's attendee emails from the attendee list, and I'll send out the link directly to the video that was recorded. Also, if everybody's permission, Gordon, we could post the presentation too as well. If everybody's okay with that, I can include that in the description of the YouTube video, so everybody can watch it post if they want to, or rewatch it.
Yeah, I'd say for the presenters, if there's any issues, just reach out to Richard direct, but I certainly don't have an issue. It's not proprietary to me anyway, but if there is an issue, just reach out to Richard, and we can edit the slides from there.
I'll reach out to AJ tomorrow just to double check with him, because he's
Sure.
not on. So
Sure. Hey, let me just see. We had, I think the high number we had was 136 participants. So that's pretty good. I would much rather do these in person, but I don't think we'll reach the volume of folks, and that's the intent. So thanks to everybody for taking the time out of your day. Have a happy Thanksgiving, and hope to see you around Manassas. Y'all have a good night.
I wanted to add real quick too, if I think I can't enter it. If anybody has any more questions for the tower controllers, I can put my email in the chat, and feel free to send an email anytime you guys need anything. But it looks like I can't put my email in the chat.
you should be able to put your email in there, I think.
Oh, whoops. There you go. Okay, my email's in the chat if anybody has any additional questions.
Did you say there's a Instagram? I'm a tower Instagram.
We do. Follow Manassas Tower on Instagram.
There we go. And do not, whatever you do, if you learned anything from tonight, don't forget to say good morning or good afternoon to Natalie. She gets really upset if you don't. All right. Good night, everybody, and have a happy Thanksgiving.